Okay, I want to do a real-time like news update. I'm just getting ready to upload. This is like 5:40, so I uploaded right at 5:40 p.m. I'm really I didn't do it for this, but I'm checking the news. A Texas deputy was arrested on allegation of child sexual assault. That's Bexar County, I believe San Antonio. It's a 4-year-old child, super aggravated sexual assault, and then threatened the mother on deportation. Okay. Are you happy, Joan, with Jose Nunez, Bexar County Sheriff? No, I'm not. And really, the thing that concerns me the most is in his position. Look, that's a 4-year-old child that he's accused of sexually assaulting multiple times. But then, if the mom reported it, she'd get deported. The crime, of course, is heinous, bad, wrong. But then use your position. Now, that just came up. The thing I really want to comment on is the James Comey thing and some of the news things. Sadly, the 4-year-old child who died was killed. The parents were arrested. I mentioned that. That's Corpus Christi. They had the street blocked off on Robin Drive, and they're arrested for, I guess, capital murder, meaning you would have abuse of the kid and then his death during that. Okay, all of those things are tragic, and to try and keep it short, I read, of course, the news a lot, and I listen to, I could say this is a defense of James Comey. I believe James Comey committed enough in this whole investigation that he should face criminal charges. But on what particular thing? This is how you have to cut through all media manipulation. And you do not just buy the line of the right or of the left. The crimes I think Mr. Comey should be charged with is when he released classified or he released personal notes that he took down while he had conversations with Mr. Trump. And these were secretly kind of handed over to a friend of his who was a law professor with the intent, which Mr. Comey has admitted, to begin the special prosecutor case. Now, when you have conversations with the president, actually the conversations are considered classified where you cannot speak about them. And Comey's under the impression that, I just jotted down what we spoke about, therefore I released those. It's the same thing. You can't do that. Now, to say, what defense do you have for Mr. Comey? As a news watcher, the IG reporter Michael Horowitz, which some in the media grasped hold on and said it showed incompetence of Mr. Comey and all. The reason why the IG report by Michael Horowitz had those things in it, that Mr. Comey acted insubordinate and all, was he, as FBI director, was making certain decisions about the Hillary Clinton investigation. Now, I think he also did wrong things in his decisions, but the IG report criticized him that he made public that they reopened the Hillary Clinton email investigation 10 days or a week or so before the election. Comey's, just me reading the news, I didn't read this recently, Comey's reason he had to come out and publicly say we reopened it is because he publicly had exonerated her. Meaning, we looked at the email investigation, whether or not she did wrong, and she did a lot of wrong. Destroyed blackberries with a hammer, bleach bit anybody that is under investigation, and Congress or the investigators subpoena laptops, phones, and all that stuff, and you purposefully destroy them. That's a crime. But the reason Mr. Comey came out so soon before the election and said we reopened the investigation, he had to do that because he publicly exonerated her. Then they were investigating Anthony Weiner for sexual contact or sexual messages online to an underage person. They had the laptop of Anthony Weiner, out of representative out of New York, and they found Anthony Weiner was married to Uma Aberdeen, who was assistant to Clinton, and they found emails of Hillary Clinton on Anthony Weiner's laptop. Well, then they had to go through those emails because that was more evidence. And then initially he stalled on it because they didn't want to do it. He waited like a month. Then they said, well, and he really did have to come out, in my mind, and say, we reopened it. I agree with Comey on that decision. Now, the IG report faulted him in insubordination because they said that's really the job of the Attorney General to make. But she kind of recused herself because she was involved in shaky things herself. Meaning she met with Bill Clinton on the tarmac at an airport and 45 minutes to an hour on a plane. You know, that was highly questionable because they were investigating Bill Clinton's wife. So now I'm going to say, just to try to cut through that for those who follow those things, I think Comey acted properly because Lynch kind of said, I recuse myself. Whatever Mr. Comey decides. So in that matter, I think the IG report somewhat is like a whitewash to say, and that's why the mainstream media was happy to say, Mr. Comey was found insubordinate because he didn't follow practices. No. That's not the crime. The crime, in my mind, is he purposefully leaked those notes, the personal private notes, that right now, today, which is Monday, they actually appeared before Congress today. And the Inspector General actually notified Congress, Mr. Grassley, today, that they're going to look in to whether or not those notes were of a classified nature. That's the thing that I think Comey put himself in legal jeopardy over. And he was out publicly talking a lot. Today he did not show up for the hearings. Now I read this on mainstream news, ABC, NBC, CBS. One of them, I read it on their online news. And Mr. Grassley, the Republican in the committee that was speaking today to Christopher Wray and others, they invited James Comey to go, and Comey said, Grassley actually said, because Mr. Comey's out of the country, and the news, mainstream news reported his texts show that he was in Iowa. So Comey knows he's in legal jeopardy. And I just say that because for those that kind of follow those things, it's sad that that deputy, like I said, he was Nunes from Bexar County, held now without bond or without bail and all. The local thing, and I didn't look at all the local latest, but that would be the big one, the tragic thing, that the parents are now charged with capital, or they're arrested over that 4-year-old child who died in Corpus Christi. So I'll do this quick. Tomorrow I begin posting, though these are old studies, not real old, but I begin Ephesians tomorrow. And then I'm adding some new notes in, along with I just wrote earlier today the news section for the Sunday Post. I forgot, sometimes I'll add part of that, just kind of like a little teaser. So what we're doing now is trying to process through some good teaching. And as you know me, if something that I feel is important comes up, I talk about it. I deal with it. Part of us, people, human beings, particularly Christians, is if you see injustice or you see people in power, and in that the tragic case, that Bexar County deputy sheriff, and then those people use their authority to threaten, I'm going to get you deported. You know, I know most people would look at this sheriff here, this Deputy Sheriff Nunes, as a monster. And you see, John, he is, yes, in a sense he is. But why would somebody sin, iniquity. I don't think anybody, I don't even see how you could have the sexual assault of a 4-year-old person. Anyone is wrong, but what that means is iniquity, sin. There's probably some history of like a child porn thing that I'm not saying we know that, because the image, Ted Bundy, the famous, you know who reminds me of this? My friend Furman, by the way. He had no sexual charges or any of that when they went to prison, and some of my other friends. But you know what he used to tell me? He said, John, he said, the people that were in prison for the sexual crimes, sexual charges, he said, I preached to them. He wrote personal tracts. He said, you're going to be, as you get saved and delivered from your lifestyle, your crime, he would tell those guys in prison. And then Furman would make tracts and reach out to those, because those were the ones particularly that society rejected. And then he told me experiences of different churches he used to go to when he got out of prison. And he said some of them said, we will not allow sex offenders after they're out of prison to come to our church. And Furman would get mad. He'd say, you're a hypocrite. Jesus loved the worst of them. I just always found that interesting. So as I look at this man with this history, I did not look at it like, good, he's law enforcement, busted. I look at it as sin and iniquity affects everybody. You never rejoice over the downfall of someone you deem your enemy. You recognize iniquity. And all of us in society, particularly the church, we have a voice to shine light. We have a voice to say, and if you happen to be in those positions of authority, you still give an account. That's one of the scriptures I've told them. We will all appear before the judgment seat of Christ. And so you too will give an account. Okay, I'll end it with that. We'll upload this right now, and God bless everybody.